What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. And break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, what's going on with Nvidia's earnings that just came out, and news about Tesla. I'm also going to break down all the technicals for Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, and all these other charts. But before I break into devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100, you are guaranteed 7 free stocks. And this offer ends very soon, in just about 6 days from now. Anyways, when it comes to Tesla, I want to call out something very important. Tesla has a bullish looking structure and pattern that is developing so far. But in order for this to play out, Tesla has to hold some key supports. And so far, what is good about Tesla is we're holding up very close to our 0.786 retracement area, which is a level we called out earlier, not to mention the fact that Tesla has some nice catalysts, such as Nvidia breaking to new all-time highs. And knowing that Tesla and Nvidia have some important partnerships, that is good news for Tesla too whatsoever. So I'm going to break down more information about the charts for Nvidia, Tesla, and etc. a little bit later into this video. But I first want to talk about what's happening with data coming out for tomorrow and news about Tesla and such. So when it comes to data, I just want to remind you all that today we had the FOMC minutes that came out. When this came out, this actually caused the market to fall a bit. So this happened because of the fact that the Federal Reserve, they came out with their report and they were indicating worries about a lack of progress on inflation. This was very, very important, very different from what Jerome Powell has been telling us. Many of the Fed participants mentioned that they are willing to tighten policy more if inflation continues to materialize, not to mention the fact that inflation is very stubborn. It's a lot more difficult to get to their 2% target than they expected. And they have to be very open minded because of that. So, this was very, very important. This is what led to the market kind of selling off a bit. And when this news came out, right, we saw Tesla drop even harder down to about 178 during this dip right here. We also saw SPY dip all the way down to about 528. But despite that happening, the market got bought back up thanks to Nvidia. So that's, in my opinion, the trap that was set. They basically dump things really hard just to scare people and simultaneously grab liquidity at these lower levels because they were getting ready for a big pump. And SPY's almost made a full recovery today during the after hours. It's still holding up very well. So this makes me think that right now the bulls have control. The bulls are the ones who managed to buy things back up. And that's despite some negative news that came out today. So that's going to be very important for the markets going into tomorrow. The bulls do have an edge, and that could help Tesla as long as we continue to hold some key levels. Anyways, what data comes out for tomorrow? Real quick, tomorrow is going to be Thursday, May 23rd, 2024. 1 hour before the market opens, we have initial jobless claims and continuing jobless claims data coming out. Initial jobless claims is very important because it gives us more insights on how the labor market is looking, and that affects the Fed's policies and such. On top of that, 15 minutes after the market opens, we have the PMI report coming out from services and manufacturing. That's going to be very important too, not to mention new home sales. Then later on, we have Bostic giving a speech, and we'll see how all of this affects us moving forward. Going into Friday, we have the Michigan consumer sentiment data and like very, very minor data. So the data is not going to be too intense for the remainder of the week. I just want to make that very clear. But we'll see what happens with initial jobless claims and the PMI reports tomorrow. For more data, we just had the one and only Nvidia announce its earnings, and earnings have been absolutely spectacular so far. Now, say what you want about Nvidia, say it's overvalued, that's completely fine. But let me just make it very clear that it doesn't matter to me if people say it's undervalued, overvalued, or whatever. At the end of the day, the technicals are bullish. At the end of the day, it got a pump. At the end of the day, it is still at all-time highs. It's still continuing to grow. So we just have to follow the trend, right? The trend is your friend. Do not forget that. That is very, very key. Nvidia has surpassed $1,000 per share for the first time on AI-driven sales surges. That is absolutely incredible news. Now, with that happening, I want to make it very, very clear that AI demand is still relatively high, and we're continuing to see a lot of growth thanks to that. NVIDIA has announced a 10-to-1 stock split. So why are they doing that? Because right now, NVIDIA is very unaffordable for a lot of audiences. And when they do a stock split, basically, 10-for-1 split is going to make the share price more affordable for retail. So if you had one NVIDIA share for $1,000, basically, it's going to turn into 10 NVIDIA shares for $100 each. The valuation is the same in terms of the market cap and such and how much your shares are worth, but each share has a lower value as you're going to end up getting like more shares. So by doing that, that's going to incentivize more growth in the company, and that has got a lot of investors very excited. EPS was $6.12 above expectations. Revenue was $26 billion above expectations, and they also mentioned that their sales for the current quarter is going to be $28 billion. That is above Wall Street's expectations of 26.61 billion. So good guidance, strong net income growth, strong, different services have been growing like their data center and their gaming sector. Nice growth, good sales for the GPUs, beating on EPS and revenue, stock split. Things are just absolutely incredible for the company. And as a result, the share price is continuing to soar. Now, people could argue that with other things going on, they also announced that they're buying back about $7.7 billion worth of their shares. More bullish news, guys. It's just bullish after bullish after bullish. That's why the share price is exploding. So let me make it very clear. You may not like Nvidia, may say whatever you want about it, but the technicals are bullish, and this is a very impactful. It's a multi-trillion-dollar market, and they will use this to help the market surge as well, in my opinion. Right now, the fear and greed index came a little bit closer to neutral because we did see the market dip a bit at the end of the day today, only to get bought back up during the after hours thanks to Nvidia, and this opens the door for more greed and more buyers as well. Momentum is still greedy. It's still holding up relatively well. Then we also have the puts and call option positioning at extreme greed right now as more calls are being bought and they're overwhelming the puts overall, and greed is still making up sentiment. Market volatility is also dipping a bit because right now the VIX is in a very, very critical place. The VIX is continuing to fall, and there's no sign of a true bounce on it, at least just yet. So that's going to be very, very pivotal for the way we end up moving, and we'll see how things end up developing from here. Now, remember two things about Tesla. Yes, Tesla had some bad news as part of why the share price ended up decreasing in value as well. Their sales in Europe actually decreased to 15-month lows, which is not the best of news. We had a very, very sluggish start for the year. They only had about 13,951 sales in April, down 2% from a year ago. Not the best of news for Tesla. That's why the share price dipped today. But one thing that is good for Tesla, okay? So we had some bad news, but here's the good thing. Tesla also has a deep partnership with Nvda. Do not forget that. Elon Musk and Tesla have announced that they may be installing 85,000 Nvidia chips, the H100 chips, by the end of the year to train AI models. That's very, very important. With AI models kind of developing the way that they are, this is going to lead to a lot of growth, not only in Tesla, but with their dependence on Nvidia and seeing Nvidia doing as well as they are, that is nothing but good news for Tesla as well. Also know that a lot of tech companies like to move together, and the market is very manipulated in a way where they like to squeeze shorts and kind of move them based off big catalysts such as Nvidia. So they're going to use Nvidia as a reason to buy up SPY, the QQQ, and possibly even Tesla too. But that will depend on different factors. Whoopsies, I have NEO opened up here. Let me switch over to Tesla. But looking at Tesla, Tesla's not doing too bad whatsoever. We've seen quite a bit of growth and a lot of improvements, at least in price action. And we have about 88 million in volume. That's not too bad, despite the fact that the share price is down a bit. On top of this, we also saw the short volume kind of going up a little bit more shorting on Tesla's been going on as part of why it's manipulated. And then Cantor Fitzgerald has maintained an overweight rating for Tesla. Price price ratio is going up just a bit because Tesla's gaining. It gained a little bit of strength. It actually came down a little bit. So like compared to before, like a few weeks ago, Tesla's a lot stronger than where it was before. But as of the last few days, it's been kind of like flat. So that tells us that yes, it gained strength and it lost strength. So it's going back and forth in that trend. For Thursdays, we're green 48% of the time historically. June is historically the strongest month of the year for Tesla. We're green 78.5% of the time. And we tend to see more volatility at 10 a.m., noon, and also around 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So overall, we have some bullish signals, at least for Tesla in terms of that data. But what do I see for the share prices? What do I think is going to play out for Tesla, in my opinion? Right now, guys, Tesla has a very, very bullish looking setup. But in order for this to develop, we have to see some changes. So when you zoom out of the charts just like this, we have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure, especially as we've been holding up. And one could also interpret this in a different way. You could argue that this is like a left shoulder right here, right? This is our head down here. And then this is our right shoulder that's about to form right here. And we're about to get a bigger push higher. So that is a strong possibility. But in order for this to play out, Tesla has to hold support where we currently are, or very close to it, in my personal opinion. So that's going to be very, very key for like the next, 1.5 to 2 weeks for Tesla to really continue to grow. Now, when we kind of look at our key levels, you will see that Tesla's been dipping quite a bit. We actually approached our 0.786 retracement from a Fibonacci standpoint today. That's one of the levels we called out where Tesla could actually end up holding up. And that's what happened for today. We're currently very close to that 178 to 180 area. If we dip a bit, watch 178 as support. If we lose that, I'm going to be looking at the 200 EMA at 176.36. And if that fills us, we have 175, that zone, which is where we have an imbalance. If we end up bouncing, we're going to be looking for 182 as resistance. If that breaks, you're going to be looking for it to try to make its way up to this gap fill, get closer to the 185s. Now, I always like to be I always like to be unbiased when making these videos because Being unbiased allows you to be open to any possibility in case good or bad news comes out. But from a technical standpoint, I would say that Tesla is holding up very well, and we do have potential to try to rebound. As long as we hold 178, we're going to be looking to see if this kind of pushes back up to at least 182 and kind of consolidates for a bit. But like I said before, we have a bullish setup, so I really hope that this works out. Nvidia is a positive catalyst for Tesla. Will we get more good news? I hope so. But in my personal opinion, there's no true sign of the bounce yet, so we have to wait and see. But I do think that there's a good chance it's going to happen. As long as we hold 178, look for a rebound to 182 and eventually 185. So I do favor a bounce as a stronger possibility. And I do think that there's a very good chance Tesla will try to bounce so long as we don't get any major bad news. Once again, guys, I know it's kind of frustrating to be talking about Tesla like that because I can't always predict everything Tesla does. Most days it's just very news dependent. So the news kind of affects it and they use the news to manipulate the way it moves. So that's the reason why sometimes I can't predict everything as accurately about Tesla on a day-to-day basis. But what I can tell you is that the overall trend is still bullish on the charts. We have a nice uptrend that's being established, and the odds and technicals do favor an upside move being a lot more probable. All right. So I do see a potential bounce tomorrow as long as we hold 178. Look for a rebound. Looking at SPY is also looking a bit more bullish because we had a bullish wedge forming. We did dip to support at 528 only to get bought back up. Now we're back in the wedge right here, so that's a bullish signal. If we break the all-time high at 531.5, look for 533 as our target. If we end up rejecting, we lose 530, look for 529.5, then eventually 528. In my personal opinion, I favor that SPY is going to likely try to push a little bit higher towards 531.5 and eventually try to break through that to get to 533. I think the upside looks a bit more probable, and I do favor that in my personal opinion. With this double bottom leg structure and a move to the upside looking more probable, I favor that for SPY as a stronger likelihood. And I think that we're most likely going to see 533 tomorrow as long as we break the all-time high. Now, just to be safe, watch for confirmation, but I find that to be very probable. Why do I say that? Because looking at NVIDIA, guys, I'm going to actually delete all my drawings and kind of like restart tomorrow. What we could do is kind of draw out a Fibonacci retracement chart like from right here, kind of look at this low and kind of look at the move just like this. But overall, NVIDIA is still holding up very, very well. Could we get a little retest of 1,000 and bounce? Yes, we could. But overall, the technicals are still bullish on the chart, and there's no sign of this basically breaking down quite yet. So zooming out of the charts, one thing we've been saying about NVIDIA is that the trend is bullish. It has remained bullish for quite some time as it's soaring to new all-time highs. So yes, I could see a retest of 1,000 and a bounce, or it could just continue from here. Overall, it's bullish, and this could help spine the QQQ push even more. When you look at the triple Q, we have a very, very strong looking uptrend that's been established. It's holding up very, very well. And when you look at technicals and we actually zoom in on the 1 hour time frame, we have 458 as resistance. We were just barely testing this. Breakdown, I could see 460 as our next target. We also happen to have support at this 456 zone. If you end up losing that, we're going to be looking at 454.5. Overall, the trend is bullish on the QQQ, and I favor upside as a stronger possibility. I would say the QQQ favors 460. I think it's going to try to break the all-time high again. And I think that there's going to be more upside thanks to Nvidia. For Apple, we have support currently at this 190.5 area. We have resistance at 191 and 192. I think that Apple might kind of dip a little bit into the 191s. The 190 zone, and then eventually bounce back up and try to get back up to 192 and just consolidate. But I do favor a move back up to at least 192 very, very soon. For more factors out there, we also have Bitcoin. Bitcoin, in my opinion, is actually kind of dipping a bit, looking a little bit weak. We're hitting this 69,000 area as our support. If we lose that, we're going to be looking for a dip down to 68,500. We also have resistance at this 69,500 zone. So I favor it's going to dip a little bit more towards 68,500. And this could be because of a nice liquidity shift in the markets for now. With that being said, guys, that is it for my video for the main 5 tickers. Now we're just going to focus on the rest of the charts. I'm going to be kind of quick with this just to make this video kind of quick. So looking at just a few more, I know people are interested in NEO. NEO, in my opinion, is trying to base right here at this 5 area. It also has like an inverse head and shoulders like structure. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually kind of push up to about 5.3 and trade sideways. But going into June, I think we could get a bounce so long as deliveries are good and try to push back up higher. For Palantir has been actually dipping a bit. It did hit 21 as expected. It's kind of bouncing off of that area. So I wouldn't be surprised if we end up pushing to about 21.42. If we break this, you're going to be looking for 21.58. So I think that a little dip and bounce is a strong possibility for Palantir, and we could be looking for 21.5 as a strong possibility. For Supermicro, I think that Supermicro, in my personal opinion, has more upside potential as well, thanks to Nvidia. We did come down very close to our 200 EMA only to hold it. So we kind of resembled Nvidia's price action. So I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of tried to push a little higher towards 920 and then consolidate from here. Nvidia is kind of causing these moves. For Rivian, I mentioned yesterday we're going to be testing 10. If we lost 10, look for a dip all the way down to 9.5. If we held 10, look for a bounce back up towards at least 10.5. And what happened? We held 10, we held support very nicely. Now, to me, it looks like we're about to get a bullish cross in the PPO. So it might kind of retrace to about 10.37 to 10.4, then try to break up higher to fill this imbalance and push to $11. I think that Rivian has potential, so we'll have to see if that ends up being the case. We're going to be very, very patient with this nonetheless. For SoFi, SoFi seeing resistance at the 200 EMA. It's looking a little bit weak right now. We could actually kind of dip a little bit towards 7 and try to bounce. If we do bounce, look for 7.17, but I favor a little dip in a bounce is a strong possibility. For the IWM Russell 2000, I think that we're going to likely be testing support currently at this 206 area. If we lose this, look for a dip all the way down towards the 205 zone. And if we hold this, we're going to be looking for a bounce towards 208 is a strong possibility as well. If we end up breaking past if we end up bouncing off the support, then we're going to likely see a nice bounce from here. So we'll just have to see what ends up happening from here. But in my personal opinion, we're going to be very, very patient and give this some time and see what ends up happening to the IWM Russell 2000. For AMD, in my personal opinion, is holding the 200 EMA very nicely. Thanks to Nvidia, there's a very good chance it's going to be pushing up towards, in my opinion, this 172 area. So I favor upside a little bit more because, once again, Nvidia is pushing, and that's going to help this, in my personal opinion. For ARM, we're looking a little bit more bullish. We're holding support nicely. Going to be looking for a push all the way up towards this 117 zone. I think there's a very good chance we could be looking for a push. On top of that, for Coinbase, we're holding up very well, but one thing worth noting is the fact that we could be retracing just a bit before we try to bounce again. I think that when you look at our key Fibonacci retracement area, we could be looking for a test right here at this 218 zone and possibly all the way down here towards 221, this entire zone down here. Look for a test of 218 to 221 and then a bounce back up to basically 240. I find that to be very probable. I think that right now the trend is still bullish. So look for a dip and a bounce on coin. For Amazon's holding our 200 EMA nicely, but we were kind of sandwiched between our two EMAs. We have resistance at 185. We have support at 180.75. Whichever way we go will be determined by those changes. I favor that we're going to try to push up higher towards 185 and then eventually push higher from there. So look for a little bounce, and I think that there's a very good chance Amazon's going to be testing its support. So it could come down like this and then bounce and push for 185, and then we'll see what happens with that. Meta's looking a bit more bullish to me. We're getting a bullish cross in the PPO. Look for 472. If we break that, then we're going to be pushing all the way up to about 478. I think 472 is going to be tested at the very least. For Microsoft, we're on a very, very nice uptrend. Look for 432 to be tested. I think it might continue to kind of push, but resistance is kind of tough up here at 432. So look for a little bit more upside and then some sideways price action. For Google is going to be likely testing. Basically, we have 177 being tested right now. If we lose this, we're going to be dipping to 175. If we hold this, we're going to be rebounding towards this cap fill at 178. So look for a test of 177. If we bounce, we're pushing up higher. If we fail, we're going to reject. For GME is on a very, very sideways trend right over here. If we end up losing support over here at this 20 area, we're going to be looking for a dip towards 17. If we end up breaking past 20, basically this 24 zone, you're going to be looking for a push all the way up to about 30. So we're going to be watching to see how things end up developing from here. For AMC, we have resistance at this $5 area. If we break through this, we're going to be looking for a bigger push. I think that AMC is forming a nice base. We're going to get a very, very nice breakout in the next 2 months. So approaching June, I think AMC is going to try to show more life and we could get a bounce. So I think that's very probable so far. DJT is kind of dipping a bit. I think we might actually establish a higher low than try to bounce. We could be trying to get our way back up to the 20 EMA at 48, but watch and see how we end up kind of like reacting right over here, because it's going to depend a lot on if we make a higher low and try to bounce or not. The VIX is continuing to fall. There's no sign of a bounce just yet, so we have to give this some time. For the 10-year treasury yield, we're kind of trading sideways right here. It depends on the Fed, but not really much is happening with it. It's not really affecting the market too much. And the dollar happens to be at resistance near 105. If we reject here on the dollar, the market's going to bounce more. If we break through this, we could be a little bit more negative for the markets. But like I said before, just be careful with the dollar. It's at resistance, and we'll see if we get a rejection or not. With that being said, guys, the odds favor new all-time highs for SPY and the QQQ. Tesla will likely follow the trend so long as we don't get bad news. And then to be safe, always pay attention to the news and see if Tesla could hold this support. When you zoom out, the ultimate picture for Tesla is looking more bullish with a nice inverse head and shoulders. In order for this to play out, we have to hold where we currently are and get a bounce. I'll be watching for that very carefully. This is the setup on Tesla. And with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. And I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow before the market opens. Thanks again, guys, and peace out.